Hello there everybody, Ricky Tang here, out on another demo motorcycle courtesy of the lovely folks at Fraser's of Gloucester. You find me today on a 2020 Kawasaki Versys 1000. I presume that's how you pronounce Versys, I'm pretty sure it is. So we have a 1043cc 4-cylinder inline 16-valve engine, water cooled. I don't think I'd be wrong if I said very similar to the engine in the Z1000 SX. However, this one's in a lower state of tune, where I think the SX is about 140 horsepower, 140 PS. This is punting out about 120. And I was very curious to know kind of how it felt in comparison to the SX, and whether there's a space for two very similar engined bikes in the range. Well, it does feel quite different, I've got to say. Obviously got this kind of tall adventure styling. But even the literature on the Kawasaki website basically says it's not really an off-road machine. This model is the standard model, not the SE. The SE comes with TFT dash, electronic suspension, smartphone connectivity, lots of bells and whistles. So I'll have to take this for what it is, a ride on the standard version. So ergonomically, big, soft, sporty tourer type machine. Now the SX was commendably smooth, very nice smooth engine, and this is more of the same. It's creamy, just like the SX was, just as a bit less cream. So the engine does feel very smooth. So far, it's not putting too many vibrations through the bike. I do feel some tingly stuff going on, but nothing too intrusive at the moment, which is good. Throttle response so far at slower speeds, decent. I felt a little bit of snatchiness coming off and on the throttle, only a little bit so far. I'm still figuring it out. I have felt worse. There are on this bike, despite being the standard model, there are two throttle maps. There's full gas and low power mode. Low power mode maybe if you're in sketchy conditions, you want a softer throttle response. You know what? I'll tell you what, let's try it, if it'll let me do it. Probably have to do it off the throttle, so let me just gain a little bit of speed towards this Volkswagen. Then I'll roll off and see if I can adjust the throttle. Yeah, looks like I got it. So I held the power down until there's a tiny power indicator in the top right hand corner of the dash. I'll try and show you later on. There was F, then F started flashing. Then I pushed up on the power and it went to L. I'm not sure if pushing down would do the same thing. I suspect it will. I wasn't quite sure how to set it, so I just held that up power button again. Just held it down until the L stopped flashing. And I'm in low throttle mode. So what's the difference? Well, certainly I think you get less horsepower. But yeah, it seems to be a longer throttle action. So you have to twist the throttle more to try and get a similar amount of shove to what you get with full gas mode. Yeah, feels very, very tame now. Wow, this sent me to sleep, this could. Not in a bad way, just how smooth it is. I'll switch it back to full gas in a minute. Yeah, that is very smooth. Yeah, the throttle's been doing good, I think, in this constant mid 30 mile an hour sort of trundle in fourth gear. The chassis so far and these slow speeds, it inspires confidence, feels nice and stable, rolls around easily on its tyres. I just came to a halt with the back brake there, and that's actually very good. Actually, it stopped me quite quick. I think there's a bit of power in that back brake. This LCD dash, a bit hard to see with all my cameras in the way, frankly. Very similar to the H2 SX that I rode a couple of weeks back. That was the standard version as well, not the SE. And I think the dash is pretty much identical. Although that one had lean angle indicators. I never managed to get them working. Well, I never sussed them out. But I don't think this has that option. Let's get into sixth gear. It's under 2,000 RPM. 32 miles an hour on the clock. Just seeing if it'll pull this gear in sixth. Slightly grumbly there. Let's put it down to fifth. Yeah, that feels happier. This is a test going uphill. Yeah, I think the lowest gear at this kind of 30 mile an hour, sorry, the highest gear. Is that the highest? Highest gear I think I want to run at this uphill at about 30. I think fifth. Fourth would be a lot happier, I think. If I was two up with luggage, it would be a different story. But just little old me solo. Fifth gear pulls from quite low speeds, so we know a bit about how this bike goes at slower speeds now, and so far it's been inoffensive. It's been a nice ride. I haven't got a bad word to say about it so far. Do we get to pull the throttle back a bit? We do. And it gets up to speed pretty quick. You can certainly tell in comparison to the 1000 SX that it's not nearly as fast. But if you're not one of those speed demons who tear around like their backsides on fire, then it's certainly fast enough. Yeah, very smooth engine. That's the thing. It is creamy power, smooth throttle response. So an even more unwound riding position than the 1000 SX. You know, your legs are straighter, your knee angles less acute. Handlebars, now I mentioned on the SX they seem to be strangely close to me, those handlebars on the 1000 SX, which would take some getting used to. This is more conventional. Handlebars are a decent distance away from you. In terms of suspension, this model comes with a standard suspension, meaning that we have preload and rebound adjustments on both front forks and rear shock. No compression adjustments, and they feel decent so far. There's that word again. I'm not going to shower them with praise. Again, by comparison, the SX, I was really impressed with the suspension on the SX, even though that wasn't even electronic suspension either, but that somehow had really nice suspension dialed in. I get the feeling that had higher grade suspension than this model. Be interested to see what happens when the speed starts to climb. I don't think this bike will tie itself in knots. Don't think any modern bike really has that bad a chassis nowadays. But be interested to see if it gets a little bit floaty and a little bit challenging at higher speeds. If it holds everything together while I'm kind of throwing it about the bends, I will be impressed. Now, one thing I've had a little bit of a fight with already is the front screen. When I initially set off on Fraser's, the front screen I'd actually put in its lowest position, and I was getting quite a bit of heavy turbulence around the top of the crash helmet. I didn't like it. I pretty quickly stopped and then put it in its highest position, and it's still not as smooth as I would like. Surely it can't just be me who has trouble with screens on touring bikes and sports touring bikes and adventure touring bikes. This screen is, they would call it stepless adjustment. I'll show you on the Walkaround. But you undo these two big adjusters here and it'll just slide up and down. There's no notches. It's a telltale sign to me that the screen's not doing a great job currently. When at 40 miles an hour, my visor, either the inner one or the outer one, is vibrating. It's being hit by a bit of chunky turbulence. That means I need to make some more adjustments and hope I can find something that works for me. So here we are, Kawasaki Versys 1000. I'm not sure of the actual model name, the full model name. I get the feeling it might be KLV 1000. But I'll flash it on the screen if I've got that wrong. So the seat height, yeah, 840 mil. I'm not going to convert that into imperial quite yet. I might flash it on the screen as well. I like the front end. I won't say I'm in love with the styling, but I do quite like the front end. I think they did a good job of styling a large front fairing. Doesn't look quite as big as it maybe it could do. So 1043cc, inline 4, 120 PS at 9,000 RPM. The torque, 102 Newton meters at 7,500 RPM. So certainly down on power compared to the SX. And it does feel a little muted. That's probably a good description of it. So nice smooth throttle response. And I reckon if I looked at a dyno chart, there'd be quite a flat torque curve to it. So the torque is good. It's just not tree stump pulling amounts of torque. The forks we got here, I mentioned preload and rebound adjustment. They're 43 mil. Upside down is, as you can see. The brakes, I'll come around the other side so maybe there's less weeds in the way. Radial calipers and 4 piston calipers at that. I've had one good squeeze on these brakes so far and they stopped me quite quick. Front dived a fair amount as well, but the brakes certainly seem powerful. Front tyre, 120/70 ZR17. What's that? Sport Touring Bridgestone Battle Axe T31F. Rear tyre 180 55 ZR17. So reasonable sized tyre. There's a nice handy adjuster for the preload for the rear shock, which is appreciated. I can see the rebound adjustment there as well, which is good. So that's, I was about to say easy to get to. Actually, getting a screwdriver in there might be a little tricky with the chassis, with the subframe in the way. You'd have to take the subframe off. I'm joking, you wouldn't have to take the subframe off, but you might have to have a little stubby screwdriver to make adjustments there, because this bit's kind of in the way, line of sight. So that might be a tad awkward. Just have to find a suitable tool. So far, I haven't gone fast yet, been mainly bimbling, but not much vibration. And the rubber's not too big, so they're not cheating there. On my Suzuki Bandit, there were some quite chunky rubbers that they had on the footrest to try and hide the vibration. That's not happening. You can see the size of these seats. Quite big, quite wide, so they do kind of stretch your legs out a little bit before they start to go downwards. So if you're a bit shorter in leg, then you might have to go for the lower seat height option, which I think is 20 mil lower than this 840 mil height. Not sure what that'll do for the pillion, if anything, but for at least for the rider, a lower seat option is available. Nice thing about this is we do have a centre stand as standard. So I don't think I'll be risking it on this grass, but it's nice to have a centre stand, especially since we are chain final drive, not shaft. And if you are going on longer tours, you will want to keep the chain lubricated, so that's a good idea. The dash, unfortunately, with reflections, I think it's going to be really hard to see the dash. Yeah, you can see the sky in the reflection here. I'm going to struggle. I think I'm going to have to increase the amount of kit I bring with me. Bring something that could kind of block out the sun or block out the sky. Let's see. Okay, that's not bad. I think the sky is kind of out of it, so we should be able to see what's what here, hopefully. Yeah, I know you have got reflections, but at least the sky's out of there, so it's not too bad. So yeah, gear indicator, your speed, clock. Oh no, that's clock, 11:42. Let's just cycle through some trip settings. There we go. So yeah, on the right hand side, 19 degrees, 72 Fahrenheit, probably engine or coolant temperature. Range, I don't know why it's telling me nothing, because I have got a bit of fuel left. 49 miles per gallon average. Bloody hell, that's pretty decent. What's that? I think that might be current miles per gallon or instant miles per gallon. And back to mileage. Trip B, looks like it says 1200 or 12 o'clock even, but it's 120.0. Trip A is the same. Odo 120. So, oh, this poor bike's only got 120 miles. I thought it had a bit more than that. So clock on the left, fuel on the far left, power setting for your throttle, L or F, and traction control, 1, 2 or 3. You mess about with that with these buttons. If I push the KRTC button, hold that in, hold that down. You see the 2 starts flashing. Oh, got a bit of reflection there, sorry. 2 starts flashing. You have to keep pressing the KRTC button to adjust the traction control. There you go. I'll bang it on 1. I don't think it'll affect the throttle response, but we'll give it a try and see if it makes any appreciable difference. Cruise control. Last Kawasaki I rode, I think I hadn't figured it out yet, but you push that and then you set your current speed. So you activate cruise control, press that to actually enable it and set your speed. Then you go up or down. Then if you twist the throttle or hit the brakes, then it will turn itself off. Now, unfortunately, I'm holding my camera, so it'll be a bit tricky to show you the adjustment. I'll tell you what, I'll switch the GoPro back on. Adjustment, basically you just loosen this, loosen that, and the whole thing just slides up and down. Not the smoothest action. I'll go midway and see what that does for me. Right, headlights. Now currently we just have the side lights on, nothing fancy. To get the main lights on, I will have to start the engine. So am I in neutral? Yes I am. So we got low beam. And I think that should be high. Yeah, there's a couple of more bulbs in play now. Full LED lighting, front and rear. Oh, they're big enough lights, aren't they? That's a big old rear light, that is. And somebody's hair, lovely. So that's about it for the walk around, I think. I'll get my kit back on and we'll get back on the road. So one thing I haven't done on these bikes yet is actually taking the seat off and have a look underneath. I'm looking here for somewhere, oh look at that, somewhere I can put the key in. Somewhat hidden away. So, oh my gosh, look at that. Big one-piece seat. And yeah, that's a good bit of space under there to put things. It's quite a lot of space generally. You should see my BMW S1000R, no space for anything pretty much. But it's pretty decent down there, isn't it? Little tool kit as well. But that's not bad. And yeah, quite a bit of space under the corresponding part of the seat pan as well, so that's pretty decent. Just hope I can get this back on properly. There we go, that's on. Could I stand if necessary? The handlebars are a little low, but it's, you know, it's not an off-road bike really, not designed to be stood on and ridden, but doable if you had to. Won't go too fast here because the cows are out. It's cow season. Though I can't see any. I guess they've gone to lunch. Ooh, nationals. Let's get a bit of speed up there, shall we? Still get a bit of turbulence on my crash helmet at the higher speed. It's not too bad though. I think this will have to do for today. That screen position. It's mopping up the bumps in the road pretty well now at that higher speed. See? Certainly not a slow machine by any stretch. She does need to lift up her skirt a bit at the higher revs. So I think there's actually a bit of fun to be had here. That's strange. I'm here at a standstill. Must be the ABS pump. When I'm at a standstill, and if I hold the front brake, there's a bit of vibration going through the bike. A little bit of a shudder. I'm confused. I've not felt that sort of effect before. I do like the clutch action and the biting point. Yeah, clutch feels nice. And light as well. The switchgear feels of a decent quality also on the old bars. Better than my BM anyway. We're like around this rough roundabout. Ugh. Oh, this is a rough ass road. Yeah, a touch fidgety. As if the damping isn't all it could be over little ruts and ridges in the road. Bits where the tarmac's been kind of torn off the road, where the top surface is gone. I suspect the electronic suspension on the SE version will just lap that up. At least after the first couple of little bumps, it might then adjust itself to smooth out that action. Right. Oh, a bit of vibration now through the for the tank at 6,500 RPM. Brakes are pretty strong. There's a reasonable bit of dive, not as bad as it could be. It'll go quick. It'll travel at quite high speed, but it did feel a little remote, maybe on its long suspension. Not floaty, not close to getting out of control, but there wasn't a lot of feel. Mirrors, I like them. They're big. You see a lot of the road behind you. My shoulders may be taking up maybe 20% of the view behind me. Quite easy to adjust though. I'm not seeing much in the way of vibration yet either affecting them, so all's good on the mirror front, I think. Mind you, when I got faster earlier on, I did feel quite a bit of vibration through the tank and the seat, so it'll be interesting to see if that affects the mirrors too. Well, I just got up to 6k there, just quickly, and the vibration came back through the tank, but the mirrors look good, and the handlebars felt alright, so the vibration seems to be well controlled and limited to the centre of the bike. But hopefully I'll get a chance to find out a bit more. Got a reasonable amount of space to move around on the seats. Yay! I haven't had a chance to see what it's like at higher revs yet. I think despite the fact the clock, the Tacho goes up to 14,000 RPM, it looks like the fun stops at 10. So I was looking at the Tacho earlier going, 14,000 RPM at the top, that's ambitious, but doesn't really get there. The wind buffeting is still a bit of an issue for me, but it's not quite the deal breaker it was on the V-Strom the other day. For me, yeah, this is doing a bit of a better job. chance to put the bike through its paces. Does feel like it's handling the road well enough. It doesn't feel unpleasant or scary in any way, which is good. But at the same time, you're not actually feeling very much. It feels a little bit numb. So after having thrown this bike at a few bends, my feelings are, it does feel like a big bike. It doesn't get out of shape. It felt like it could deal with those roads and those speeds, but it just doesn't feel like it's meant for that sort of thing. Cruising a mile after mile with its 21 litre fuel tank, I do believe. It's good at cruising, not quite so adept at boogieing. It's for mile munching and not for chomping at the bit. Just got this kind of a slightly remote feeling to it. I suspect that remote feeling will go away with the SE version and its electronically self-adjusting suspension. So if you don't want too much from the handling, you don't intend to actually push it too hard, this could be a good choice. It's not bad value, I think, for 11,299 RRP for this version. The SE is something like £3 more expensive. I think that's 14,699 RRP. But you do get quite a lot of extra technology for that money. Whole new dash, smartphone connectivity, electronically adjustable suspension, cornering lights, as this one hasn't got. It's not an option on this one. Another thing the SE's got over the this standard version, although they both have radial calipers, the SE has a specific radial master cylinder instead of a conventional one as well, so there's a good chance that the braking performance will be even stronger on the SE, even though it's pretty good on this one. It will stop you unless you've done something really stupid. So before the big question, let's just go through some of the things I'm not a big fan of and things I do like. Well, for starters, the screen. I've not had a lot of luck finding a good position for the screen that will keep the wind turbulence off my crash helmet. It's not as bad as the V-Strom though, so that's something, but nowhere near as good as the Kawasaki 1000 SX. The other thing, well, in this application the engine feels a bit muted. It still goes quick if you wind the throttle back far enough, but yeah, you do feel that there's kind of not a hesitation, but just feels a little soft. So that's not really a fair criticism, I guess. Depends on what you're used to. If you're coming up from something like some sort of 650, 750, 800 kind of a road-based bike, this engine feels smooth and it will feel really torquey as well. So it's all relative. So there's not much I don't like about this bike. Around about 6,000 RPM, there was just over 6. There's a fair bit of vibration around the tank area, around by my thighs and my gonads, but it may be that will change, that will smooth out as the miles go on, because this hasn't got very many miles on it. But I guess one of the biggest things is when I was throwing it through the bends, it did kind of feel rather remote. I didn't feel plugged into the road. And that's something that could be improved with the SE model. And I might even be able to improve it with adjusting, you know, the stock suspension. But as it stands, yeah, it just feels a little bit numb in the handling department. Although it did get you there. It gets you through the other side without any drama. Now I do like the riding position, going on to things that are nice about this bike. The riding position is very relaxed. You can definitely see me doing mile after mile after mile on this bike if I had to. Despite the overall lack of power and torque for my tastes, the engine is smooth. Throttle response is smooth most of the time. So I do like the creamy power delivery. So yeah, it's a fairly short list, I think, of things I don't like and do like. Everything else is kind of fine, it's good, it's decent. Nothing else is really jumping out at me in terms of awesome or awful. Oh, one thing though, very nice to change into first gear. There's no lurch. There's a click and you feel it. But yeah, much softer than many bikes I've ridden in terms of getting into first gear. Very nice. So yeah, the time has come for the big question. Will I take her out on a second date? The answer's gotta be no, really. Now that's not because this is a bad bike. It's not a bad bike. It's just not quite what I'm looking for. The good news is I know there's another bike in the range, in the Kawasaki range, which is much more suited to my character, being the Z1000SX. So now I see the reason. I understand the point of there being both bikes available, even in the UK, which can't be a very big market overall in the grand scheme of things for Kawasaki. So we have this big, kind of soft, relaxing tourer, and the SX is certainly more sporty, dare I say it, more fun. So I appreciate that Kawasaki has kind of got both bikes available in the UK. So it just remains for me to thank again Frasers of Gloucester for the very kind loan of this Versys. Now, I know this bike hasn't quite floated my boat, but if it floats yours and you're in the market for a big competent tourer, be aware again you've got this standard model, and then you get the SE version available with a lot more technology and improved suspension. Then try and get yourself a test ride. And if you're local, come to Frasers. Tell them Ricky Tang sent you. They won't charge you too much extra. So thanks for coming out with me on my first date here. There'll be more first dates to come because I'm a right slag. So see you again. See you again in another video.